Our chair of our DEI committee, Jo and Millie. There they are.
Wow.
I don't need to give you this back, do I? No. I'm getting a bit confused, sorry.
Jo, you're correct. Swap roles. So, thank you everyone for joining us today on this amazing moment. British Beauty Week this week has been so far phenomenal. I'm so excited. And my thing that I've really run with is this idea that we are a community. I mean, the power, that for me, lots of people have been asking, what is the power of beauty? And for me, it has always been about community, so I think that's really important. And so I'm really happy, Jo and Millie, that you are here today to join us for this talk about accessibility. So, Jo, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm a makeup artist and I've had a career on social media before there was much representation. And I now design products and do consulting and talk about all things LGBT and DEI, so yeah, that's me.
And Millie?
Hi, I'm Millie. I'm founder of Human Beauty. We're an adaptive and accessible makeup brand on a mission to create makeup accessible for all and spread the message that perfect is boring and human is beautiful.
Woo! So to begin with, I think it's really great to have a little bit of clarity here about what we mean about accessibility. So I'm going to ask you, what does a truly accessible beauty industry look like to you? And I know it's a big question, but I think it's really important for all of us to really get an insight into this. So Jo, what does it mean to you?
I think it's like a very open question because there's the beauty industry as a consumer and then there's a beauty industry as someone that works in it. And I think it's got to apply to both of those differently. I think seeing people from the same experience as you in roles in the beauty industry is really important because once you see someone do it well, you can see the possibility of you doing it well. So I guess that's my perspective.
Millie?
So what does a truly accessible beauty industry look like? I would talk about accessibility from like a 360 point of view from, the product design. So accessible makeup means makeup that everyone can use from different races, abilities, but also from like web design and stuff. So there's no point making an accessible product if the people can't access your online website, for example. And all the way to makeup counters. If your counter is too tall or there isn't enough space for a wheelchair user to get through, that's also not accessible. So it needs to be looked at from all sorts of angles and also, again, right to the core of business in terms of employing different people.
So, it sounds as if, it's not sounds as if, this definitely, very clearly comes from a very personal angle. So, how has beauty helped your own identity and self-expression?
It's helped me massively. Growing up, I was really ill. I spent most of my time in and out of hospital. And I went to an all-girls school, which was an experience, and I was kind of desperately trying to fit in, but suddenly I discovered makeup and hair, and I suddenly didn't care what the trends were or being liked. It was more when people looked at me, I had a reason for people to look at me because of my crazy hair or my crazy makeup. It wasn't because I was walking funny or because of my height. So that was like a huge turning point for me to be able to express myself and kind of, just show who I am really.
So I'm just going to throw it out there. I mean, like, you were showing who you are, but did you find that you were suddenly part of this larger community that looked at personal self-identity?
I think I found that later on. I think at the time I really liked the beauty industry. I was obsessed with influencers, especially American influencers. But actually looking back, I didn't see myself in any of those influencers or media. So whether or not it was, I don't think it was the beauty industry or the community that helped me with that. It was just my personal journey and suddenly kind of deciding that I don't care what people say. Like, I remember so vividly that a group of my friends at the time said, "Oh, you can't have blue hair. That wouldn't look good on you. It would look good on your best friend, but not you." And then suddenly I was like, I don't care. And that's the thing. It wasn't the industry, because really the industry is getting better, but I never saw any disabled influencers back then at all. So.
I mean, it's just the landscape's completely changed, and it's so much more exciting because of it, and I think that's what we need to really hold on to. So, Joe, for you, how has beauty helped your own identity?
It's been like integral to everything I've done, because I grew up with gender dysphoria and I went through school looking completely ambiguous. No one could distinguish my gender, and I had no examples of what to do or where to find people like me. And beauty online at that time, it was before everything was monetized, even before videos on YouTube were widescreen. There was a community of trans people called 5AT. We were all working together and we shared information. And I think social media was a really amazing turn for people to find themselves, because you could see other people like you from different points of the world. And I remember when we started, this was like 2007, so such a long time ago now. But all of this information's been like the last 15 years, just been building and building and building and building, and it's become this like powerful network where you can discover yourself. But I was really like into video games, so when I was younger I used to play the fabulous video games where all the characters looked ambiguous and androgynous, and I learned to create character designs. So it was all through like my sketchbook that I wanted to dive into the beauty industry, because I thought, well, it was actually from The Sims. Do you remember The Sims back in the day? They had those folders. Oh, on The Sims 2, they had those skin folders when you went into like the game files, and you could see a flat image of a face, but it had been shaded. And I went, oh, I'm going to do that to my face. And then I did, and then I could be everything I wanted to be. So that's my exploration.
I mean, I think everyone's got a point where they go, I want to be that person. I mean, you talked about sort of The Sims. For me, it was science fiction, so Lieutenant Uhuru. Always, those eyelashes and the hair and the nails. Yeah. So, the beauty industry has famously been much more welcoming to diverse genders and has been used as a vehicle for identity. But there are still hurdles in this area. Joe, this is for you. What challenges have you experienced? And we were talking about this downstairs, so. And how have you overcome them?
I think that there wasn't examples of people like me as a viable business. So when I would go to agencies, even though I won this huge competition that Simon Cowell put on called the U Generation competition, people probably remember that Little Mix did the accent challenge. That I won that competition, but that's more famous than me winning, even though I was the first trans person to do something like that. So I've been finding it consistently difficult to be seen as a viable talent, because there wasn't examples of someone doing it before. Now we've got so much more visibility, but there's also this other side to that, which is like, am I just ticking a box? Because I've worked so hard to discipline myself in so many different areas of the beauty industry, from learning from a lab tech's point of view to just being so disciplined with my artistry. And it's like, I want to be recognised for what I can bring to the table, not just my identity. And I think that's the side that we need to add to the mix. So I guess like the visibility thing's great, but now we need to see the value of what individuals can do and be seen as good.
But one of the things you said downstairs was, when I thought that was really fascinating, was that you had to almost take a sidestep and really think about the other skill sets that you had to acquire in order to be in this space. So would you like to explain what that is?
Yeah, like every time I see a no, I go, yes, I'm going to just go around you instead. And I've always got that kind of like, if I can't do it through working with you, then I'll work with someone else. Or if I can't walk through this door, I'll build a door and walk through here. Because I'm not going to not do what I'm good at and passionate about. I'm going to continue to do it regardless. And I think every step of my journey, even when I was doing social media, I worked with a big agency here in America, but they asked me to do a boy look, and at that time I didn't. So I was like, well, what do? I'm still getting all the views. I might as well self-manage my career. And if you don't want me, someone else will. And I just kept finding different alleyways to get back into what I wanted to do. And this year we celebrated nearly 15 years of my career with an edit with Mac, which was amazing. So, yeah, I did it on my own.
Which brings me neatly to Millie. You've created products that are designed to be accessible for everyone, such as your makeup therapy palette, or mascara Human Beauty. So what more needs to be done to ensure those with motor disabilities can enjoy and consume beauty? Because that's slightly different, enjoying it and consuming it, as we discussed yesterday.
Yeah, so I always talk about innovation and where in terms of it doesn't have to be crazy innovation, it's incremental change and using technologies that are already out there to create products that are useful for all consumers. For example, our mascara is square, so if you knock it over, it won't roll on the floor. It's not like mind-blowingly different, but it helps so many more people. And it's not just people with motor disabilities, it's considering people with sensory issues or people who are visually impaired and blind. Our makeup therapy palette has a QR code on the back for people who are visually impaired and blind, or the other day someone told me they're colourblind, so being able to scan the QR code and have me describe the colours when their partner's not there, it's really, really helpful. So it's just, I always say, it's about asking. It's asking the people you're designing your products for, because funnily enough, people always design products without asking, especially with disabilities, across all industries, like all the way down to kind of accessible toilets. A lot of them aren't accessible because they haven't been asked the people. So I always say I don't talk on behalf of everyone with disabilities, but I try my hardest to send my products to varying degrees of disabilities, from motor all the way to neurodiverse people, because that's what true kind of accessibility and inclusivity means.
And I think that we were talking yesterday, and it suddenly struck me that actually a lot of the things that you are pioneering are going to affect everyone at some point, because, God, I'm an ageing woman, and the idea of my eyesight going and my ability to bend down and pick things up or hold things, that will happen to all of us.
Yeah, I always say that, like, people with disabilities, it's the world's largest minority, and it's the only minority that anyone in this room could become a part of, and it's things that people don't think about until it affects them, which we need to change that and start the conversation before it's suddenly affecting you.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've seen larger conglomerates start to create accessible offerings. We had a big discussion about this yesterday. L'Oreal's Hapta and Estee Lauder's voice-enabled assistant. How far behind do you think the rest of the industry is?
Well, the industry as a whole is pretty behind. You look at the fashion industry, adaptive clothing is a whole market and industry in itself. I mean, I'm glad it's being talked about with big companies like L'Oreal, but I wrote a blog post about this recently because if you look at the core of L'Oreal's Hapta device, it's actually not very accessible. Accessibility has to come with price as well as actual, the practicality of a product. So 53% disabled people unemployed, so that also is something to take into consideration. But the L'Oreal Hapta device is nearly $200. It can only be used to apply lipstick, and only Lancôme lipsticks, which are about 6 times the average price of a normal lipstick. So it's also forced loyalty. And realistically, it's a big gimbal. You can't take it out with you. If you don't have hands or anything like that, it's not accessible. It's kind of to me, an over-innovative device that looks pretty with a very high price point. But unfortunately, because of the way the industry is, no one's talking about that type of thing. And I'm really happy it was praised for and started a conversation, but the conversation needs to be deeper and actually call industries out and companies out for tokenistic accessibility.
Yeah, because I think there's a big difference between accessibility and adaptability. And I think people think that the two terms are fluid, but they're not. And I think that what they created was something that was adaptable, but wasn't accessible in its true sense of the word. I think that's really important. So let's talk about something a bit more sort of positive. Could you tell us something that has recently excited you about the beauty industry? Joe?
Oh my God.
It could be a brand, it could be a campaign, person. Who do you think is making positive change?
I I'd have to think about that one a little bit deeper because, like, I love seeing like so many brands move towards like visibility, as I was talking about earlier. But I really want to see people have like their guest makeup editor or their guest makeup expert be someone like me. I want to see more people that have done the work be put into that position too, just to see a diversity of ideas. And there are so many brands that are coming out all the time at the moment, especially since influencers have started to use makeup as merchandise. It's sort of oversaturated the market a little bit, and I think it's hard for indie brands or new brands with positive ideas to really get the same press that someone that's under a huge umbrella can get. And I think that's totally difficult. But I love the brand Pacifica because they've just launched into the UK and they're super sustainable and vegan and super accessible price point. So I love what they do, and they're really nice. But yeah.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying in terms of like it is really hard for indie and smaller brands to kind of get our messaging out there or even talk about the topics I've just spoken about. I've not been able to have that voice really, but I mean Rare Beauty has done some great stuff for starting that conversation. Because based on Selena's story, I mean, she has Selena Gomez's budget, but it is really, really good to see a celebrity who, again, has had a kidney transplant like I have, and to bring that into light, because not many people know that kind of thing. So that's really exciting, and also just seeing more, like at London Fashion Week, walk the catwalk, and it was the first the first year it was an official London Fashion Week catwalk. So seeing it slowly come and be kind of more, more in the spotlight is really good and exciting.
Excellent. So the British Beauty Week, it's all about the power of beauty, and I'm going to give you a desert island disc question. Don't you like that? Yeah. If you could take one product with you to your desert island, Joe, your face.
Which one do I prefer?
Okay, you can take one thing.
Oh girl, if I have to deal with the beard on the island, I think we're going to have to bring some SPF. I'm not going to look like that. Remember Homer Simpson got that makeup gun? That would probably be on the desert island if I brought makeup. Yeah, definitely SPF. Anything that would be like heat protecting, I think.
Mine's always going to be mascara. I say if I could have like nothing like in terms of makeup, it's always mascara. I've applied it in hospital. It's my thing that makes me feel a bit more human, because especially when I get ill, my eyelashes disappear and I just don't feel me really. So I'll always, like, if I can put just one product on before I leave the house and feel like confident, it's always mascara. Yeah, that's why I called it liquid confidence, because it's kind of my like, right, I'm ready to go. Oh my god.
Okay, in case you're wondering what I would choose, because I'm a Catholic girl and I was brought up with nuns, and there was no mirrors allowed in any of the rooms, so I think I would always have a compact mirror. Yeah. So thank you for coming in today to have this conversation about accessibility. I think the thing now is for everyone to be really thinking about it in how they discuss beauty, because I think it's, as I said before, it's affecting everyone. At some point in our lives will be accessibility or adaptability to beauty will inform how we see the world. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm now going to throw it out. Does anyone have any questions for Millie or Joe about accessibility?
Oh, hi, is this on? Hello, I'm David. I absolutely loved listening to you three. Thank you very, very much. How do you empower or influence people to listen to what the changes that you're both talking about? So, you know, the kind of the big stores, the people that are going to make the difference to people every day, how are you going to make them listen and change?
Well, it's just keep the who shouts the loudest. I'm kind of knocking on the doors of the big kind of press, and also the nature of the beauty industry is people are going to copy and get along, which is what I want. I want other brands to, you know, come along on the journey, but I am kind of I want to offer consultancy to those big brands, and honestly, it's about calling them out on socials, and kind of sharing my stories in terms of when I worked on counters and the discrimination, and like my blog post about L'Oreal, that type of thing. It's just about sharing my experience and making them listen until they do.
Brilliant.
I think that like when it comes to the topic around transgender identity, there's been so much heat because it's such a big thing in the news that there's been such an effort, especially from trans advocates, that I don't class myself as an advocate, even though I've been myself my whole career. I think that we have lost the humanisation side of things, and we're very enforceful when it comes to pronouns and identity and getting things right. I like to give people room to make mistakes because I always take the mickey out myself, so feel free to do so too. So I think like allowing people to have the room to make mistakes stops the issue being so scary. And I went to, I did a launch for a brand called Jekyll Black, and we went around all the publications, and they said, well, we don't really talk about trans stories because we're scared of getting the backlash for getting it wrong. And I said, well, in this case, feel free to get it wrong because you're getting it wrong about me, and I want you to get it wrong to maybe learn to get it right. But we've got to have some conversation, because if we're just shutting it down out of fear, then we're not actually going to get anywhere at all. So I think, like, for me, I want to take a different stance and just let people make mistakes and then be human, be relatable, I guess.
Wow. So empowering.
So, do you think this is really about having people more representation in the spaces where these decisions are being made? Because at the moment it seems as if you're being sort of ever so often being asked to come in and contribute, but actually to have the odd conversation, is that enough?
In terms of disabilities, I don't think it's enough. I think I try, and like with photo shoots, I've been looking for disabled photographers, and it's important to have disabled people behind the camera as well as in front of the camera. And when I do employ a team, I want to make sure that we are a really diverse group of people, because that's how mistakes get made and things fall through the net with big companies like Boots. I said to you about Boots with their they changed their disabled parking to less abled parking, and that just clearly got slipped through the net because they didn't ask anyone and they wanted to kind of get it out there. So people need to be internal to be able to kind of shout and say, what are you doing?
You got that wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It's like you have to have the people working behind the scenes representative of the ideals you're selling. Because I think sometimes, like when I've worked on shoots, there's been no one behind the scenes that could say, that ain't quite right, but let's get this right, let's not tokenise, let's actually be realistic. And I think it's just giving people opportunities to work in the beauty industry. And also, because there's been so much representation like in the media, and there's people that have just been what I call tick boxes, they're not like, you're not looked at as like a person of accumulated skills. It's like if you're in any other kind of industry and you work your way up, you're given a value as an expert the more you do. But when you're just being considered there for what you are, they don't even see your resume, they just see you as someone with a tick box. And I've worked so hard to continuously build up new skills that I want to be considered for what I can bring to the table, because I'm not leaving.
I love that. Yeah. Well done.
But I'm just going to say that actually to be in that accessible space, the skill set of both of you is phenomenal. I cannot get over it. And just talking to the two of you, wow.
I'm a total geek, really. I'm just a crazy person.
Well, but you're also a cosmetic scientist.
Yes,
You've retrained, right? So this is what you need to do to be in that accessible space. You have to adapt and learn new skill sets, which is really frustrating, because why should you? Why should you have to be everything to everyone? You should be able to just go, I do this and I do this really well. Yeah. I'm sorry, that was me going off on a tangent. Anyone else got any questions? Yes.
Hi, my name's Alex. Hi, I'm Alex. You guys have both spoken about, or all of you have spoken about, the importance of individuals finding a community of other people who are just like you. How have you found, or where have you found, whether it's digitally or physically, those communities of other people who are like you?
I definitely discovered everyone on MySpace. Yes, I'm that old. I was on MySpace. Hello. I was a superstar on MySpace. But that was the first turning point, because around that time it made people that were kind of isolated in communities all connect, and then when we all came together we had a louder voice because there was lots of us. So my thing was always on digital, and over the years I've done so many projects online where we did this project called Perfect Androgyny, and it was like giving platforms to all my friends basically. And we'd all discuss like topics every week, and it would be more kind of like, I guess it wouldn't be so serious, because you see these people that do like topical conversation online and it's so serious and so heated and so polarised. We would just be like, you agree this, I agree this, but I love you, sis. It would all be like chilled, it wouldn't be as difficult, so it was definitely online.
I've found by sharing my story, a lot of people have found me online. And it depends on what community. So the condition I have, there's only 3,000 of us in the world. So they've found me through documentaries, and I've had parents of young kids message me and saying, thank you for giving us hope of, what the future could be like. But also on LinkedIn, finding other kind of disability advocates, and also just learning. It's been kind of a real steep learning curve in terms of web accessibility and stuff. I posted a post that I thought was good. It was an accessibility widget, and I was quickly schooled by the right people on LinkedIn and their top voices that that's not the way. So by building my community, and also like going to networking events like this, I mean, you find your community in person as well.
Yeah. So I think
I've got a question.
Yeah. One minute.
What can we do better? I mean, that's, what do we need to do?
Listen.
Listen?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Listen.
David would like to ask.
I'd say listen to the people who are kind of coming to you with the issues. Also raise the voices of the people who are trying to educate and get the message out there.
Is funding an issue? Do you think funding and support for brands?
I think so. I'm lucky enough that I managed to gain a government grant through. They've just released the first year of the Inclusive Innovations, but that was my third year in a row of applying for a government grant, because funny enough, trying to persuade the government to invest in a beauty brand is very difficult. You have like an anonymous feedback.
You should have been here earlier and you could have said it to the government directly.
It's all done anonymously, but you can tell kind of demographic of a specific judge. I had one judge saying, so let me get this paint right. You want to use taxpayers' money to launch just a beauty brand. And it's like, how have you watched my story and read the same application that the other two that are raving about it say how needed it is. Just having kind of spaces that kind of minority groups can go to for investors and stuff like that as well, and just also big brands like retailers being able to have kind of schemes where indie brands can get through their doors, because it's really hard knocking on the doors of retailers, and once you're in there, the compliance and the operations and things like that is almost impossible until you're huge.
That's a really good point, isn't it, the retailers?
Yeah, I think... sorry. It's real. I feel really emotional listening to you two. I was the beauty director at Selfridges for quite a long time, and believe it or not, I was the first openly gay member of their board at Selfridges. And I feel extremely humbled. I feel like I want to say sorry, to be honest, because everybody's chasing their bottom line in retail, and they've lost the courage to listen and to move forward. And I don't know what else to say apart from I'd really like to help you make that change.
Thank you.
Find him after the show. I'm crying downstairs.
So I think that's a really nice segue into the point that I was going to make as we finish today, which was really about, of course, listening. That's very, very important, but also just reaching out. Today's all about the power of beauty and community, as you mentioned, and part of being part of this community is actually accessing people, really accessing people. So please do speak to Millie and Joe after today. So they've got a lot more to say. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you.